Hi YouTube, Nintendo Fangirl here, continuing my streak of recording things way too late in the night. It's 1:21 a.m. So E3 predictions. This is, I don't know, how many years in a row have I been doing this? Too many. I'm so excited that we're getting a real E3 this year and we're getting a real nice Nintendo Direct. 40 minutes of Switch game software news, according to Nintendo, mostly of games releasing in 2021. Obviously, that means some games that they're talking about will not be in 2021, but that's okay. Technically, we haven't gotten into the predictions yet, but I will say the fact that Nintendo is specifying that they're focusing on Nintendo Switch software means that we probably should not expect anything other than Nintendo Switch software. So I don't think we're getting a Nintendo Switch Pro announcement at E3, but we'll talk more about that later. Quick housekeeping things real fast. I will be streaming some non-Nintendo E3 stuff, like the Ubisoft press conference and some others I'm going to try and stream on my Twitch channel. So if you have any interest in that, follow me over at twitch.tv/NinFangirl. However, I will be live streaming and reacting to the Nintendo Direct here on my YouTube channel. So if you just need somebody to watch with, you want a buddy to react with, I'll be here, and if you miss it, it'll be on my YouTube channel after the fact. And Nintendo's E3 Direct will be on Tuesday, June 15th, 9 a.m. Pacific time, or noon Eastern, or any other time zone, depending on where you are in the world. So I'll be live here before that time, and not only will I be reacting, I'll also be playing bingo. I created some bingo cards with some viewers. I have a game version in terms of what games are going to be announced, and then I also have like a general version, like, oh, I predict that we're gonna hear the snapping transition at some point. I have more than a bingo board's worth of options. Some of them are like probably gonna happen. Some of them are pretty far-fetched. And whenever you click the link, it's gonna auto-generate a new bingo board for you. And you can click and mark things off, and it's super cool. I paid for the premium version on this website, so you don't have to because I made the bingo boards for you. So if you wanna play bingo along with us, I'll put the links to those in the description and the comments down below. There's no prize, but you'll get the satisfaction of being the first person to yell bingo in the chat. And that's always fun. All right, that's enough housekeeping. Let's go ahead and talk about predictions. If you have any questions about why I think something is obvious or not obvious and I didn't elaborate on it, feel free to ask in the comments. I promise I will respond to you because I have answers for all this stuff. I just don't want to rattle on like I'm doing right now. So I'm actually going to start with the shortest portion of my list, which is things that are kind of on my and on everyone's radars, but I don't think we're going to see. Starting with Metroid Prime 4. We are now at the point where I wouldn't be shocked, like my mind wouldn't be completely blown if we saw it, but I really don't think we're ready to see Metroid Prime 4 yet. I've been hearing a lot of people saying things like, oh, they're going to focus so much time on Skyward Sword or Mario Golf, even though they're about to come out. I don't think that's going to happen. I think we're barely going to hear from games that are soon to release, including Skyward Sword, unless they have something new to announce for it, and I don't think they do. Mario Golf, Monster Hunter Stories, No More Heroes 3. I like those kinds of games. I think maybe they'll get tossed into a reel of upcoming games, but not elaborated on at all. Splatoon 3, we really only just got the teaser for that. I don't think we're going to be seeing more of Splatoon 3 at this time, unless it's way farther along than I'm expecting, but my guess, no Splatoon 3. And last but not least, on my things that we're not going to see, and this is going to make a lot of people upset, I think, and it's not by Nintendo's fault that people might be upset. It's false expectations, I would say, and that's the Nintendo Switch Pro. Whatever the upgraded version of the Nintendo Switch is, this is why I try to tell people to not get excited off of rumors, off of anything that has not been spoken out of Nintendo's lips. That might be something that people don't like to listen to. I'm well aware because whenever I say it, I get pushback. But at the end of the day, people get really excited over things like the Nintendo Switch Pro being announced before E3. And here we are on June 11th, and there has been no Nintendo Switch Pro announcement. There doesn't appear that there's going to be a Nintendo Switch Pro announcement, and therefore it probably also won't happen at E3. And my reasoning for that is the fact that Nintendo's really heavily level setting by saying upfront that the Nintendo Direct for E3 is going to be focused on Nintendo Switch software. Usually when Nintendo specifies something like that, the reason they're saying it is because they don't want you to get excited over something potentially being announced that's not going to be announced. Do I think the Nintendo Switch Pro exists? I do. Personally, I think it does. I think we're now at the point in the Nintendo Switch's life that Nintendo is ready to push out whatever its successor, its upgraded version is. Do I think it's going to be announced for E3? No. At this point, I do not. But we'll see. We'll see. It's possible. All right, let's move on to semi-realistic predictions. That's what I labeled it as on my little notepad here. First of all, Shin Megami Tensei 5, I'm going to say the release date was leaked. I'm not going to say what it is in case you want to be surprised, but I think it's pretty safe to assume that we're going to get a release date and a trailer for Shin Megami Tensei 5 during the Direct. I also think it's a pretty safe bet that we're going to be getting probably the final 2 Smash characters. There's a chance we might only get one of the 2. It would be really weird if we didn't get any. I'm guessing we're going to get both. Like, I thought really hard about this. I only want to give 2 guesses, so you'll really know if I'm right or wrong. My guess is one is going to be Crash Bandicoot, and the other is going to be Waluigi. It's not what I want, but that's what I'm predicting. What I actually want in my perfect world would probably be like Drago or Ring Fit Trainer, something from Ring Fit Adventure, because there's so much fun stuff you can do with that game. Or Shantae would be a really awesome pick. I know a ton of people want her. And my final one, which I've said many times and I would continue to say, it would be Sora, which some people think not possible because of Disney copyrights. I think it's possible. I think anything's possible if you want it to be, but I don't know that they want it to be, specifically Square Enix. I don't know if they want it. But I'll continue to say it as I continued to predict Banjo-Kazooie for Smash, even though I thought it wasn't possible, because who knows? And I think Sora would be probably the most hype, awesome release announcement for a Smash character possible at this point. Moving on, realistic predictions. Zelda. Lots and lots and lots of Zelda. So I really, really cannot fathom a world in which Mario got that huge 35-year-long celebration and Zelda gets nothing. I'm quite certain that Zelda is getting a 35th anniversary celebration that hasn't commenced yet. And my prediction is that it will commence with the launch of Skyward Sword this July, and that all of the things that will be branching out of that will be announced during E3 this year. Some of the things I'm predicting that'll go alongside a Zelda 35 would be, just like with Mario, Animal Crossing DLC. We already have Animal Crossing Zelda stuff in New Leaf. There's Animal Crossing characters that can actually be imported via Amiibo, so that those could be reinstated. Lots and lots and lots of Zelda merch. There's so much you can do with Zelda merch. Maybe like a Zelda-specific Nintendo Switch Online game, just like Mario 35 had. I'm gonna just mention it would be really cool to get a Triforce Heroes remake and give that game another shot on the Switch, where there's more of a user base. And by more of a user base, I mean more of a user base for the online services. That wasn't one of my predictions, but I do predict that there will be ports announced for the Switch, and my thoughts are Wind Waker HD and Twilight Princess HD. Not the first time I've shared that prediction. I shared it before it became a rumor several months ago. I really do think that Twilight Princess HD and Wind Waker HD are the easy ones to port, and that's what's going to be ported first. But I also think we could get a teaser for a new port that we aren't anticipating, and my guess for that, it's really more of a hope, is Minish Cap. Just like the Link's Awakening remake on the Switch was kind of a surprise. Everyone wasn't expecting to see that style in the game, so I want that. But with Minish Cap. A lot of people say Oracle games. Those are the very few games that I haven't finished for Zelda, so I'm sure I would love them, and I'd be happy to have any Zelda port, to be clear, but I'm going to go ahead and say Minish Cap and stick with it. Final answer. And while we're on the subject of Zelda, I will mention, of course, Breath of the Wild 2. I think Breath of the Wild 2 is going to be the big show for this year. At the very least, I think it's going to get a title, a release window, and a trailer. My prediction is that the release window will be early 2022, so probably March is my guess. I think the title and the trailer are going to give us a little more of an idea on the direction of the game, and I'm hoping we also get some gameplay in the treehouse. Breath of the Wild 2 is the thing that I am the most hyped for this E3, and I think I'm not the only one. I'd be very upset if I don't see Breath of the Wild. I don't get mad. I never get mad at companies. I don't get mad at Nintendo when they don't announce the thing that I want them to announce. I would be very upset if we don't see Breath of the Wild 2. I just get sad. I'm just a sad girl sometimes. I'm just really, really excited to see where that story goes. I want to see Ganon. I want to see Zelda with her short hair. I want to see Link. I want to see everyone. I'm super stoked for that. Oh, one more Zelda thing. The Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity DLC for June hasn't been announced yet. We know it's coming out in June, but we don't know when. I think that's going to be the thing that gets announced, and they say available for download tonight. We know it's June DLC. It makes sense that when they announce it and they say what it is, they're going to also be like, yeah, go ahead and download it. It's ready. Oh, the only other Zelda 35 thing that I was going to mention is that I am also anticipating an amiibo reprint for those. I think that's going to be the amiibo mention we get. Amiibo reprint. Amiibo reprint. All right, let's move on from Zelda. Let's talk about Animal Crossing. So I really thought for March 20th of this year, 2021, we were going to be getting our 2.0 update. That's just what I'm calling it. I don't know that it's a 2.0 update, but a big update for Animal Crossing New Horizons. I thought it was going to be at the 1 year mark as like a thank you for playing for a year. That didn't happen. Hopeful wishing, perhaps, that we're going to be getting a Brewster in an update because our poor little pigeon friend, he hasn't been around for a while. We need to bring him back. What I'd also like to see in a big Animal Crossing update would be like an upgraded shop, more things to do, like a new shop somewhere, maybe the ability to travel to another island to play mini games like a New Leaf with Cap'n, of course. A lot of things Nintendo could do. I don't know if they're doing them, but I'm hoping they are. Xenoblade Chronicles X port for Switch. So Xenoblade Chronicles X is now the sole game in the Xenoblade Chronicles series that has not been ported to Switch. So makes sense. I know I said Metroid Prime 4 was a no-no, but I am going to say Metroid Prime Trilogy, which I've predicted so many times, but I'm going to continue doing it. Metroid Prime Trilogy HD for the Switch. I think there's so much value to be had by putting the Metroid Prime Trilogy on the Switch. It gets people hyped for Metroid Prime 4. It brings people up to speed on the story, and they're good games. I have a hunch that we might be too early for that even. I think they're going to wait to announce the Metroid Prime Trilogy if it's ready until like a year before Metroid Prime 4 is ready, and I don't think we're at that point yet, so we'll see. Bayonetta 3? It's been so long. Is it time? Maybe. I anticipate we'll see something from Square. I don't know what. Project Triangle Strategy is possible. Something Final Fantasy. I'm not really well versed on Final Fantasy things, so I can't predict anything reliably there, but it makes sense. Like Square Enix tends to stick their toe into Nintendo Direct pretty frequently. Square Enix also has a Square Enix Presents this weekend, so they might announce something before bringing it to the Direct, but I'll mention it. These next three things I'm going to say kind of collectively because I don't think they're all three happening, but I wouldn't be surprised if one of them does because they all have been kind of tossed around in some way by Nintendo during surveys or the studios that have been preoccupied and stuff like that. I'll just say what they are. A 3D platformer game for Donkey Kong, a new Kirby game, and a WarioWare game. What do they have in common? They could exist, potentially, in the future. Those are kind of the three things that I think could be like the surprise that we aren't fully expecting, but there is some indication that they're being worked on. By no means am I saying that I think we're going to get a Donkey Kong and a WarioWare and a Kirby game announced. No, that is not going to happen. I would be mind blown if it did, but no, I don't think so. But I'm going to go ahead and say I think we might hear from at least one of those three. And last but not least, this one might be stretching it a little bit, but I think we could see an update to Nintendo Switch Online that includes maybe GBA games, maybe? When we get half that stuff, I'll be happy. But the next portion of my list, they're not really predictions. They're not things I'm expecting in any way, shape, or form to hear, but they're things that I really want. Number one, Nintendo Land on the Switch. Wouldn't that be great? Nintendo Land didn't get the love it deserves. And if you stick it on the Switch and you give it like really awesome multiplayer online support with Nintendo Switch Online, there's something there. Same vein, Nintendogs on Switch. That one's probably less hype for a lot of people, but I'm just a big fan of Nintendogs. Let me pet a virtual puppy or a virtual kitten any day and I'm down. Kid Icarus on Switch. I actually think there's a little bit of precedent here, and kind of for all of these things that I'm talking about, just like a teeny glimmer of hope, because we saw Miitopia, of all the games, get a port from the 3DS over to the Switch, and it is delightful. You would never know that it was ported from a 3DS game. Seeing that gives me a lot of hope that Nintendo has on their mind how can they bring these 3DS franchises that either did really well or didn't do as well as they should have done over to the Switch. And Kid Icarus Uprising is such a good game. It deserves either a port or what I would prefer would be a sequel on the Switch. And, Sakurai, maybe finished the 2 characters and he's like, oh, all right, time to do something else. Don't laugh at me here. Banjo-Kazooie. And even, potentially, other Microsoft games on the Switch. Wouldn't be the first ones, to be clear. So what I'll say here is that Phil Spencer is, kind of falling into the chaotic good category lately, and he is doing a lot of things that a lot of people wouldn't have predicted in terms of making Game Pass accessible, making these Microsoft games that would typically only be available on Xbox, on Microsoft console, available in other ways to other people, such as on PC, on mobile devices. I can picture a world in which there are Game Pass games available on the Switch. You don't buy them, you just log in with Game Pass and you have access. I'm sure not the whole Game Pass library, I don't think that makes sense, but certain games that Xbox knows is going to get people to dive in and buy that Game Pass, putting it out there. We talked about this one on stream. Well, we talked about all of these on stream, but this was one that I hadn't thought about until somebody mentioned, and I think it's so smart. Persona 3 FES and Persona 4 Golden. They're on like everything else. It makes sense for those to be ported to the Switch. People would eat them up. I'd eat them up. I think it's a good idea. I just realized pretty much all of my predictions here are ports. I'm not very creative. Speaking of ports, I put the Assassin's Creed Ezio trilogy on here. To be clear, I think if the Ezio trilogy was being ported to the Switch, Ubisoft would probably announce it during their conference. I don't think that Nintendo would even think it worthy of a Nintendo Direct announcement, but I just want to say, on the record, the Ezio trilogy is the one that deserves to be ported, and it hasn't been yet. Next, something else, who knows what, to utilize the Miitopia Mii Maker. So Nintendo put Miitopia on the Switch, and when they did that, they also completely revamped the Mii Maker to just be this incredible system where you can make anything you want. Any piece of art that you want to put on a Mii's face, you can do it. And there's so much possibility there, but most notably, Tamagotchi Life, which was a game on the 3DS that, again, I think deserves its chance to shine on the Switch. And imagine Tamagotchi Life with Miitopia's Mii Maker. Mwah. And one more thing that I'm looping in with this prediction, Miitomo. Remember that? Miitomo was like this weird social network app that Nintendo developed for phones where you interacted with other people and they had Miis and you did stuff, but then they ended it and you can't even access it anymore. Now imagine a world in which Miitomo is the Switch-like profile system and you can interact with other people's Miis. Can you fathom how nice that would be? I would really, really, really love to have like Nintendo's profile system, Nintendo's avatar system, Nintendo's friend system, just really squish it up and fix it a little bit. And then the last thing on my list, very similar vein, again, something I've mentioned and asked for and hoped for many, many years now, is some form of themes on the Switch. The Switch isn't ugly, like the user interface is not ugly, it's fine. Could it be better? Yes. Much. And it was far into the 3DS's life when we finally got badges and themes for the 3DS. So I say never when it comes to the Switch. I just don't understand why you wouldn't build it in early on. And yet here we are. But I digress. Tell me, friends, what are you hoping for at E3 this year? What's your hype level? Are you like way up here? Are you super excited? You can't see where I'm reaching, but it's really high up there. Or are you like, it's probably not going to be much. Truthfully, low expectations is the way to go because you'll never be disappointed if you go in expecting nothing. I've gone beyond that point. I really can't do low expectations anymore. So fingers crossed, it's good. Once again, I'll mention that Nintendo's E3 Direct is on Tuesday, June 15th at 9 a.m. PT or 12 noon ET. And then after for 3 hours, I think E3 technically has it listed as starting at 10 PT or 1 p.m. ET is Nintendo's Treehouse, which is 3 hours of live streaming of like gameplay, further details on games, and things like that. And remember, we got our 2 bingo games, so even if you're not going to be watching along with us, go take them, use them to your heart's content. They're in the description and the comments down below. I'm probably forgetting things too, so you can tell me all the things I'm forgetting down below. I'm just super excited that we have a good old classic E3 ahead of us this weekend. Thank you so much for watching. I'm so happy to talk about E3 again. This is so exciting. Yee. I'll talk to you all soon. Love you.
Diku diku diku. Da-na-na-na-na-na. 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 Da-na-na-dun-dun-dun-dun-dun. Da-na-na-na-dun-dun-dun-dun-dun.